Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the latest release of one of the most trusted Linux distributions in the enterprise world, Rocky Linux 10. We'll talk about what Rocky Linux is, what's new in version 10, and why it's such a big deal for servers, developers, and even regular Linux desktop users. So, let's break it down. Before we talk about version 10, let's quickly explain what Rocky Linux is. Rocky Linux is a free open source operating system that's designed to be a drop-in replacement for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL for short. Think of it like a community-supported version of RHEL without the expensive licensing fees. It's perfect for businesses, servers, and anyone who wants a rock-solid stable Linux environment. It was created after CentOS, a popular free RHEL clone, shifted directions back in 2020. When that happened, one of the original founders of CentOS stepped in and launched Rocky Linux. Since then, it's grown fast and become one of the go-to enterprise-grade Linux distributions out there. So now, what's the big deal with Rocky Linux 10? Well, this is the latest major version, and it brings some significant changes under the hood. Not just a few updated apps, but real changes that affect how it runs, what hardware it supports, and what kind of software you can use with it. If you're running a server, working in IT, developing applications, or just curious about the latest tech in the Linux world, this is worth paying attention. Let's start with something important: hardware support. One of the biggest changes in Rocky Linux 10 is that it drops support for older processors. Specifically, it no longer supports the x86-64v2 architecture. Don't worry if that sounds confusing, let me explain. Your computer's processor, whether it's from Intel or AMD, uses a set of instructions to run programs. These instruction sets have different versions. The older your processor, the older the version it uses. Rocky Linux 10 now requires a newer type called x86-64v3. This means older PCs, especially those made before around 2013 or 2014, may not be able to run it. If you try to install Rocky Linux 10 on an older machine, it probably won't work. They've also added support for more modern processors architectures, including ARM64, used in things like Raspberry Pi 5 and some servers. RISC-V64, a new open source hardware architecture that's becoming more popular. IBM Power and IBM Z, used in big enterprise systems. Also, and this is important, all 32-bit software support has been removed. If you've got old 32-bit apps, you'll need to either update them to 64-bit or run them inside a container or virtual machine. When installing Rocky Linux 10, there is a small but important change too. New users now get administrative privileges by default during the install process. If you don't want that, you'll need to manually uncheck it during setup. This means by default you'll have the ability to install apps, make system changes, and perform admin tasks, unless you turn it off. If you ever needed to access your Linux desktop remotely, like from another computer, you probably used something called VNC. In Rocky Linux 10, they switched to RDP, which stands for Remote Desktop Protocol. RDP is faster, more secure, and more widely supported, especially on Windows systems. So, if you want to control your Rocky Linux machine from your Windows laptop or another PC, it will be easier and smoother now. Let's talk about networking. In the past, your computer probably used a tool called DHCP client to automatically get an IP address from your router. In Rocky Linux 10, this old DHCP client is gone. Instead, this job is now handled directly by Network Manager, which is the tool that manages your network connections. Also, the old ISC DHCP server, which has been around for decades, is now replaced by a newer tool called KEA DHCP. It's faster, more secure, and better suited for modern networks. This is a big one for desktop users. Wayland has officially replaced the older Zorg server as the default display system in Rocky Linux 10. Now, if you're wondering what a display server is, it's basically the part of your operating system that handles how windows and graphics appear on your screen. Wayland is more modern, secure, and efficient than the old Zorg system. But don't worry, if you have older apps that still rely on Zorg, they'll still work through something called X-Wayland, which acts as a compatibility layer. Let's move on to the software side of things, because Rocky Linux 10 comes with some important updates to popular tools and languages. Here are a few highlights. PHP version 8.3, Python version 3.12, Nginx version 1.26, PostgreSQL version 16.8, MySQL version 8.4, Valky version 8.0, and MariaDB version 10.11. So if you're running web servers or applications, you'll have access to the latest versions of these critical tools. For developers and sysadmins, there are new versions of performance tools and debuggers too. GDB version 14.2, Valgrind version 3.23, SystemTap version 5.1, Performance Copilot version 6.3, and Grafana version 10.2. These tools help you troubleshoot problems, monitor your servers, and optimize performance. And lastly, programmers also get updated toolsets like LLVM version 19.1, Rust version 1.84, and Go version 1.23. If you're developing modern apps in these languages, you'll definitely appreciate having access to these newer versions. So why does all of this matter? Well, Rocky Linux 10 is all about keeping up with modern hardware and software needs while staying secure and stable for enterprise and server use. By dropping old architectures, adopting newer protocols like RDP and Wayland, and updating software to the latest secure versions, it ensures businesses and developers have a reliable and future-proof platform to build on. And with the addition of RACE-V support, it's also opening doors to exciting new open-source hardware options. If you're worried about stability, don't be. Every Rocky Linux release goes through thorough testing, both manually and through automated systems. Version 10 was tested for 2 weeks before it was officially released across different systems and configurations. The team even shares their results, discussions, and checklists publicly, which shows how seriously they take reliability. If you want to check out Rocky Linux 10 for yourself, you can grab it from the official website. They have installation images for servers, desktops, cloud platforms, and even containers. I'll leave a link in the video description if you want to download it and try it out. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more Linux news, tutorials, and distro reviews, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.